moved into an area with lots of vineyards.
España, Espanha. That ñ sound in Portuguese is NH. Spain, and the storks are going to be there waiting to welcome us. I can already see them on their nests up on the left there. There we are. Welcome to Spain. See here to the right, España, and the community of Extremadura. And all the storks on their nests. Look here on the left. They're the welcome committee.
This bull is
They even make him
billboard.
anatomically correct.
Yes, they do.
Yes, there he is. So you're going to see this bull all over Spain.
Advertising beer. Yeah, we're in the monumental city of Merida, and we're going to be seeing a bunch of Roman stuff. Now here's a nice Roman bath, and today there's some goldfish in there. I suppose the water's a little higher. It would flow over this infinity edge, the major area that was first excavated in 1910. It was founded in 25 BC as a place for retired soldiers.
3,000 people in Roman times. Today is 65,000, actually not far away from that. 65,000 in Spain is nothing but a medium small town. In Roman times it was actually one of the most remarkable colonies we have on the western part of the Roman Empire. Everything disappeared when Roman Empire collapsed, and we were really lucky because all cities after the Roman civilization were rather smaller than this one. It means that the two buildings we are going to visit right now that were actually in a corner of the Roman colony remain on the outskirts of the town.
This is the Roman theater, buried for about 18 centuries.
Christ. And the original capacity was around 15 to 16,000 people. Seats, and in 3 different sections. Don't forget the games were most of the time free, so actually the ones coming to see the show in here, they actually occupy the sections depending on the social class they belong to. So the nobles, or the patricians as they call them, they were actually closest to the arena. There was a second section for the plebeians, the rest of Roman citizens, and there was a third section that we've completely lost. I'll show you where it was. For slaves, prisoners of war, foreigners, but especially for women, because although they were members of patrician families, they never had the right of sitting down there together with their husbands. So it has to be always on top for this, and games were held in the forums, in the public squares of the Roman towns, so they just have like wooden structures on the forums, and when the games finished, everything was actually destroyed. But when games became really popular, it's where they began to do this in stone, as we can see, I mean, stable structures. The name amphitheater comes from a Greek prefix, which is amphi. Amphi in Greek means double, because at the beginning we put 2 theaters together, so it was like a double theater, and that's the origin of the word amphitheater. The most famous one being the Colosseum in Rome, but the order him to save him most of the times because gladiators were too expensive to feed and to train as to lose them so easily. So I usually compare these with WWF, what you have in the States. They fight and you think they are killing themselves, but actually they do it that way that actually they are just faking. But something like that happened in here. Anyway, they didn't have many chances to be killed because they only fought 4 to 5 times a year. I usually compare this with our soccer teams in Europe. Your hero, your Cristiano Ronaldo, your Messi, which is actually your favorite football player, when he fails a goal, you still love him and you forgive him. That's what happened in here. The more you fought, the more popular you became, and the people more wanted you to save, although you were defeated for another gladiator. It's like a mailbox, actually, and that was a place for feeding the animals without having the danger of being beaten by them. So actually, those spaces were the cages for the animals. Bulls and bears, that's what we usually saw in here. Bringing animals from Africa, as they made in Rome, was too expensive for a medium colony like this one. So most of the times they used local animals. That's because of the bones we found that we know.
The holes over here on the wall is where they attached blue marble, and then there was a railing up above so that the animals wouldn't get at the spectators. So now we're walking from the amphitheater to the theater. This is Original Road. The theater is a little older than the amphitheater. finished 16 BC, and the amphitheater was 8 BC. 6,000 people could be seated in here.
Restoration of one of the entrances, and every time you see ours, like the ones you have in here to my left, that means that from this point onwards is a reconstruction, okay? So you can see the difference. These are old stones, you have new ones to your right. They have to make it because it's a building we still use, but trying to follow the way Romans already made it. So this to your left, they are all original. You are going to see how the vaults, the entrances are really neat, really original from stones, and they haven't been touched in centuries, in more than 2,000 years. And as I told you, this was a city dump. So everything that was leftovers, the waste materials, they were brought in here, and this covered so quickly that those stolen the blocks of granite, actually, when they arrived in here, that area was already covered. So it was underground, nobody saw it. And
this is a wonderful theater. This is all original. This theater wall is quite rare. This marble, we came by the quarries
2025 years.
just into Portugal.
It's not bad. Yeah, it's from a city called Estremoz that you've crossed on your way from Évora to here. So capitals are also regional, and we suppose that these backstage with columns collapsed so quickly and covers even quicker that nobody realized that the columns were underground, and luckily they were not stolen, which is usual because this is really valuable. Many Renaissance palaces in Italy, they're all built with old Roman columns. In here, some of them, but not from the theater, were taken for building the great mosque at Cordoba in the south of Spain by the Arabs later on, but the ones of the theater, luckily, as this became a dump and it was covered so quickly, they never stole them. But just to imagine how this looked in 1910, right before the excavations began, the ground level was where you see the handrail in here, okay? So the only visible part of the theater was nothing but the top, the summa cavea, the space occupied by the slaves, the foreigners and the women on top. And look, we have the summa cavea. From now on, every time you see a theater, you'll know for sure if the theater is Roman or Greek. Just have a look to the semi-round space down there, called the orchestra. Orchestras in Greek theaters are completely round. Why? Because Greek theaters didn't have a stage. So Romans took the idea of the Greek theaters, they reduced the size of the orchestra to the half, they developed the stage that Greek theaters didn't have, and they closed everything behind with a backstage of columns and a wall. If you sit on a Greek theater, and Epidaurus in Greece is a very good example, you can see what's behind the stage or the orchestra because they are really open. So the philosophy is the same, but they changed slightly the structure, reducing the orchestra, making the stage and the columns and everything closed, covered with canvas, and the sound, the acoustics was really great. In Greek was really great, but in Roman ones that were actually all closed, the sound didn't escape. So if an actor was speaking to a normal voice down there, and people were completely in silence, something really hard in Spain, but sometimes we do our best, they could be heard by the whole public perfectly well. Ceres there and Pluto on your right, they are both Roman divinities. They are Roman gods. Gods always look the same. So that's why they were carved with the head, because Ceres was going to be always the same. He was going to look always the same, and Pluto too. So every time you see statues and you see the head, there are some exemptions from old times that statues of emperors kept the heads, but most of the times they belong to gods and goddesses from Roman times. And
the ones without heads were a member of the imperial family. When you get a new imperial family, you just put a new head on the same body. They really didn't care about accuracy. This was the lobby for the patricians, the wealthy, as they were waiting to go inside. This is a Spanish actress. They have a festival here, and she performed the first year in 1933. She performed Medea, and she was Republican, and she escaped under Franco. There was a garden here in Roman times, and this arbor covered it on all four sides. So this was all covered with this arbor, and there's the garden. And this is outside the theater, Stu just spotted the latrines. This whole area in here was Roman houses and baths, partially excavated.